Good afternoon, Chair Feldman, Vice Chair Kagan, there you are. Hello again. And members of the Education, Energy, and Environment Committee. For the record, I am Serena McIlwain, Secretary of Maryland's Department of the Environment. And again, joining me here from MDE is the Air and Radiation Director, Chris Hoagland. And he's going to be advancing the slides for me. So thank you for inviting me so that I can provide this briefing on the climate pollution reduction plan that was released just last month. We were required to prepare that plan as in accordance with the Climate Solutions Now Act, which required that MDE create a plan that ensures that we are meeting the climate change goals that are outlined in the Climate Solutions Now Act. So I want to start by saying I am really proud that Maryland's Climate Solutions Now Act set the strongest greenhouse gas reduction goals in any state in the country. In Maryland, we will reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by the 60% that's outlined in the Climate Solutions Now Act by 2031, and we will meet net zero reductions by 2045. The good news I have to share is that achieving our climate goals will be great for not just the environment, but also for our economy. Our plan details how Marylanders will enjoy shared economic benefits as we start making that shift toward a clean economy. So before I get into the details of the plan, I do want to highlight that we have made extraordinary progress toward those goals already. We have strong momentum on our side, so that we can continue to accelerate progress as we have been before. Maryland used to, and this is a good point and a very important point I want to make. Maryland, we used to be have the worst air quality in the eastern United States. Our energy system back then was heavily reliant on coal, and the air across the state and in our cities was too often unhealthy to even breathe. But thanks to decades of hard work, leadership, and strong policy, last year, and this is really important for me to say, last year, we celebrated a huge milestone in Maryland. We demonstrated that Maryland was meeting all of the national ambient air quality standards for the first time since the passage of the Federal Clean Air Act in 1970. This is a huge accomplishment, excuse me, that has fundamentally improved air quality of life here in Maryland. And our work, yes, it's far from complete, and we must secure environmental justice in communities that have been historically left behind. So we're not finished, we have more to do, but it's still an opportunity for us today to reflect on all the good work and the good progress that we've made and learn from the actions that got us here this far. Our greatest progress so far and our great progress so far and strong set current policies really do get us to just about 51% reduction in 2031. And what I mean by that, and you can look on this chart that we have in front of us today, if we continued with the current policies that we have in place and we implement the policies, the planned policies that we're supposed to implement going forward, we would reach 51% greenhouse gas reductions by 2031. And you can see that on the left side of the graph. But we need to do better than 60%. And this is why we have the climate plan that we're talking about today. The plan lays out steps that we need to take so that we can go from meeting 51%, which is not what we're supposed to meet. We have to meet 60% as called for in the Climate Solutions Now Act. So now I just want to provide a few highlights on those steps. And I'm going to go through three major sectors of our economy, and I want to start with electricity. Decarbonizing our electric sector is really the key to unlocking progress everywhere else, because plentiful, clean electricity can fuel not only zero-emission vehicles, but also buildings. We have seen our most rapid progress so far from the electricity sector as we have moved away from coal. So we do have strong policy momentum, as I said earlier, and we have it because we also have the Regional Greenhouse Gas Initiative. We have the Renewable Portfolio Standard and offshore wind that's all already leading the way. So this plan puts forward new policy mechanisms so we can really start building on the momentum that we have and move us forward so that we can meet Governor Moore's goal of 100% clean electricity by 2035. This progress on clean electricity, it enables us to get, excuse me, get the climate benefits from shifting from electric buildings and vehicles. Shifting to electric vehicles and buildings. The good news is that this transition is already underway and accelerating. Heat pumps, a lot of people don't know this, but heat pumps, they now outsell gas furnaces in the United States already. The best-selling car in the country last year was an electric car. Don't ask me what kind, I don't know. I have a hint, it's probably a Tesla, but anyway, but also not just the best-selling car in the country, but electric cars are actually the best-selling car in the world. And these new electric systems are increasingly powered by clean electricity. So there's been a lot of focus and conversation about the capabilities of our electric grid and if it can handle the transition to clean electricity. The Public Service Commission completed their study of the demands that our clean energy transition will have or will place on the grid, and it concluded that the growth in electricity use will be manageable in the future and below the levels that we've successfully already managed in the past. So next, I want to talk about the transportation sector. Transportation decarbonization is the largest part of the plan. 40% of the climate pollution in Maryland comes from transportation. We have to look critically and seriously at this sector, which is why we have big policies in the plan that you'll see related to transportation. This is where we have to be more aggressive. With Governor Moore's leadership and direction from the General Assembly, MDE took two huge steps last year to accelerate our shift to clean, efficient, money-saving electric vehicle. We adopted the Advanced Clean Cars 2 program to move our light-duty cells to 100% electricity by 2035. We also adopted the Advanced Clean Trucks program so that we can start replacing our largest and dirtiest diesel engines with new electric trucks. Those electric trucks will have real outsized benefits for the communities that are really overburdened by air pollution, because heavy diesel traffic is the largest source of air quality problems to too many Maryland communities. Equally important is continued investment in and expansion of public transportation options for Marylanders. Our partners at the Maryland Department of Transportation, they have set ambitious goals for reducing single passenger vehicle use, and they're moving on long-term investments in new public transportation projects like the Baltimore Red Line. And all of that plays a critical part in the transportation decarbonization initiative that we have, and that is how we are going to meet our goals. I just talked about the transportation decarbonization. So how do we do that? We have to have a strong charging network, and Maryland is doing well, and a lot of people don't realize that. Because I hear a lot about we don't have enough chargers, we don't have the infrastructure. But I want to say today, we are doing really well in that area. We have thousands of chargers, roughly one charger for every 18 vehicles. That ratio is good. And we're building the network to address concerns that we continue to hear about charging availability. So we're going to do even more and get even better. We're investing tens of millions of dollars into strengthening and growing that network through the federally funded and state funded programs at MDOT. and the Maryland Energy Administration as well, the Maryland Clean Energy Center, as well as us at MDE. The third sector I'd like to talk about is buildings. Buildings are a key part also of this transition. It is so critical to electrify and decarbonize buildings for the goals because most of our energy use is in our buildings. So we're putting the building energy performance standards in place right now. They're really important to electrifying our large buildings. We have to find funding, we know that, to help buildings with this transition. They can't do it alone. And we know that, and we're working hard to figure out ways to do that. New policies like equipment standards and clean heat standards will add to that and move all of our buildings to clean energy. So those policies in the end are all about making investments in our homes and in our businesses. Those investments are a pathway to work, wealth, wages, because that work needs to be done right here in Maryland, and that's how we move to a clean and green economy. Our plan as a whole will create an additional 27,000 jobs between now and 2031. And this is not just about, and I said that before, but it's not just about environmental protection. It's about building a stronger economy in Maryland. There's no either or, it's both. Everything we do, we have in mind climate change and our economy. Some great news here is that the clean energy transition we're building through this plan is really great for family budgets. So when we move to clean electric homes and cars, we save thousands of dollars for the average Maryland household. We have support from the federal government to do this. The Inflation Reduction Act, or the IRA, expanded tax credits for Americans to cover the upfront cost of those money-saving investments in cleaner and more efficient homes and cars. And the state is also expanding our programs in this area. The Maryland Energy Administration is rolling out rebates for electrification projects and households later on this year, and they have $137 million from federal funds that they're going to be using. So despite all of these resources from the federal sector and the federal law, we really do need to have a conversation about how do we fund this transition over the long term here in Maryland, because we all know this, but those federal funds are not going to last long. And that's where Maryland needs to kick in and be ready to continue the transition. This long-term need accelerating our investment by about $1 billion per year. We identified several ideas and concepts to consider in the climate plan that draw upon different funding sources that does not impact the taxpayer. That's the key. We want to do this without raising taxes on Marylanders. So this is not going to be easy, but these are just some concepts that we put into the plan that can start the conversation. Governor Moore takes this very seriously, and this is why his budget finds an additional $90 million to start investing right away. Despite the challenges that we have with the budget, that's a demonstration of commitment and how serious the governor is about this transition. We know that fighting climate change goes hand in hand with economic development. We have to consider a variety of options to move where we can, and we're already well on our way. So for example, I just want to give a few examples that we're pursuing from federal grants. And these three alone are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. We have the EPA Clean School Bus Grants. We have EPA Solar for All grants, and we have EPA Climate Pollution Reduction Implementation Grants. So federal grants and loans. Yeah, again, that's not enough. We need to rely on Maryland. Once we have the new funding sources, we can extend and supplement federally funded programs to drive investment in efficient electric buildings, electric vehicles and chargers, clean industry and workforce development, among other priorities that we've talked about. So I'd like to close with a few reminders of why we're doing all of this. And I am just about done. When we reduce carbon pollution, we also reduce other forms of air pollution that cause public health problems here in Maryland today. The clean economy transition in this plan will yield huge benefits to Marylanders from improved air quality and public health, with those benefits concentrated, as they should be, in historically disadvantaged communities. I've said several times now that this is good for the economy. I'm not just making this up. I'm not making up those numbers. Our scientists and economists they took a detailed look at what we're talking about today, and they prepared specific estimates of the economic impact for this plan. In addition to those, to the thousands of jobs that I mentioned, this transition will make Marylanders and our economy more prosperous to the tune of billions of dollars. So we cannot lose sight of the original purpose for all of this. So we have to respond to climate change. It is serious. It's a global challenge. It's here. It's in front of us today. Now that the plan is out, we're getting to work. We're moving to leave no federal dollars behind, and we're moving on regulatory processes to get new programs in place. We're coordinating with the Maryland Commission on Climate Change so that we can design and implement new approaches, and we're evaluating with all of you new funding sources.